Hello again, everyone. Ken from Whittling Woods, back again here. Today we're not going to do any whittling today. We're just going to talk about a subject that comes up quite a bit in the comments. I tend to use a pocket knife in a number of videos that I do. I'm sure you've seen them. I think the last couple videos may have been using a pocket knife. And so I get asked a lot of questions. A lot of people like the idea of using a pocket knife for whittling, and I actually really enjoy it. And I just have a collection here of various pocket or folding knives that I own, and they're interesting to use. They're a lot of fun, and you can do some really interesting carvings. I tend to use my pocket knives on found wood, actual wood, kind of like this, or in our bigger pieces, as you probably see me do, like I mentioned in a few videos. And there's all different types of pocket knives, and so and in fact they're not just called pocket knives. I think you'll hear them referred to as jackknives, folding knives, everyday carry knives, or EDC knives. Even pen knife is not an uncommon term. Most of them, I think you're going to find the blade length is, varies maybe an inch to 6-7 inches, I guess, would be kind of big, but maybe 5 inches or so. And they have quite a history, actually, from what I found out. Actually, the oldest, they found a pocket knife, believe it or not, in Austria, that dates back almost 2,500 years. Well, I shouldn't say a pocket knife. I guess it was more of a folding knife, but kind of interesting. I didn't realize they go back quite that far. Of course, they really didn't come into common use until maybe 100, 150, 200 years ago or so, and that's when they started to come in more common use. There was a type of knife, basically like this one here. This is, as you can see here, a knife from Opinel, and they're made in France, and it's basically, I think it was originally called a farmer's knife, peasant knife, something to that extent. And what it does, it has no locking mechanism, or it doesn't have a means for the blade to lock by any type of friction or what have you. What it does is it'll open up, and there's a little, on the ferrule, there's a little mechanism you can turn, and it essentially locks the blade in. So it's kind of interesting. There's no tension that you would normally find in a locking mechanism other than this manual adjustment that you make for it. And then it also folds back, and you can lock it in place when it's folded, so it can't come out accidentally. And they're actually really cool knives. I bought a couple. This one happens to have a stainless steel blade, although it's not completely stainless steel. From what I understand, there's a bit of I guess carbon material in here, so they will rust. But this one happens to be an example of their stainless steel blade. My wife gave it to me a while ago, and I haven't destroyed this one yet, like I'm going to show you on the other one. This is another Opinel knife that I've owned for quite some time. I actually took off. It had a shinier finish on the handle, and I like them a little rougher, so I kind of removed that. And I also cut the blade. I wanted it to have a clipped end like that, so it kind of, like the other blade, it kind of curved up. So I cut it and flattened it out, and I've used this for whittling too. This is their carbon blade, and it's easier to. It's not stainless steel, so it's a little easier to shape. And this is number 9 knife. I don't know if you can see it on there. They have various sizes, and they work the same way as I showed you on the other one. I have a couple. Here's like one of their smallest ones, and I did the same thing to all these. Excuse me for people who are fans of these knives if they believe I destroyed them. I just happen to use them for whittling, and one day I'll do a video using these knives. They're really cool. That's probably one of their smallest. I believe this is. Does it say it on here? This is a number 6, maybe it says here, and I think I have a number 7. So I think they may even go smaller than that. But there's a few examples of a type of a folding knife that locks manually. You make the adjustment. Now, typically what you'll find in other types of knives, like this big folding knife that I've picked up at one of the big box stores. I was just curious to see what they were like. I actually did a video of me using this knife. I would not recommend this as a whittling knife, but if you happen to be, you know, bushcrafting and you're out in the woods, if you look back, I think maybe 3-4 years ago I did a video of me using this knife. It can be done. I haven't sharpened it to use it, but this actually locks in place. You can kind of see the blade is held pretty firm in place, and you have to manually, there's a little locking mechanism right here, you basically push that aside and lower the blade. It doesn't lock in, but it snaps lock, as you can see. It locks shut that way. So it's an interesting knife. I wouldn't recommend it for whittling, but it is a folding knife, pocket knife that you know, if you're out and this is the only knife you have, check back. Maybe I'll have some links in the description. You can see me screwing around with this knife, doing a little whittle. Most of the time, what you're going to find are knives like this. These are your typical pocket knives, folding knives, however you want to call them. And you know, they have a, which I guess is like some type of tensioned mechanism or back spring or whatever it's called, where the knife actually, when you open it up, you can kind of hear it. It clicks into place. It's not locked, but it's held by tension. So you can push it back with a little bit, but it sort of holds it in place. Now, some people would maybe consider this kind of dangerous because you could accidentally close it on yourself if you hit it wrong. And actually, the most dangerous thing with a pocket knife that I found, and I've used these for whittling for many years, is closing them. Because a lot of times, if you're not paying attention, like I tend to do sometimes, I'll have my finger like right there and I'll close the knife. And if it's designed where it snaps kind of shut, if your finger's in the way, well, you'll get a little nick there. And I can attest to the fact that that's happened. This knife here, and this knife here are from Rough Rider. I've owned these knives for probably 15 years or so. I think I picked them up for about $8. The steel on these, I believe, is 440C. I'm not 100% sure, and it doesn't say on the blade, but I believe when I purchased them back then, I was looking for 440 steel. 440 steel is kind of the, what I found, it works for me. I'm no expert on steel, so I'll let people debate what is good and what's not. I think that if you find a blade that's made out of 440 steel, it's got a good mix of you know, the elements that go into it, the iron, chromium, the carbon, and what have you, that keep it from rusting. And also, you know, I find them, you can sharpen them up, you can change them. You know, these knives I've modified a bit in time. I've shortened some blades, like I believe this one here. I've actually shortened this a little bit, so you can grind them down and configure them to your liking. I find these little Rough Riders nice to use. They're called the Whittler. And the design of these is that there's 3 blades. You basically have the one large blade, and then you have 2 smaller blades over here. They don't make this particular knife. I'm going to be careful here. You can see that's the design. It's got one large blade and then 2 smaller blades on the other side. It was called their Whittler, and they still make Whittler styles. I'll have a picture, you know, that'll show up on the screen somewhere. That'll show their common, the common one. These knives were purchased, like I said, many years ago. And these particular models, they don't make these any longer. But they do have models that are similar to this. I can't attest to the quality of the knives now. Like I said, I purchased these about 15 years ago. So, but both of these knives are essentially the same. It's the same design. 3 blades, one large blade on one side, and then 2 shorter blades. And in essence, that's kind of, some of these knives are like that. I wouldn't recommend knives with a lot more blades, or this old timer is not a bad knife. The problem I find is sometimes the fit and finish on some of these knives is not the best. These are all made, they're all imported in, and you know, sometimes it's hit or miss. You can get a good one, and then you can get ones where I believe, I don't know if it's this one or not, where the blades themselves, they kind of hit against each other when they close, and sometimes that can take a chip out of the bottom edge here. So the fit and finish of some of them, you know, remain or not the best. Let me put it that way. And if and today, who knows? Maybe they've gotten even worse than when I purchased them. But they're, if you give it a try, I think you can pick up one of these Rough Rider whittlers. I'll have a link in the description to a place where I purchased them many years ago. I think they're only now. Like I said, I purchased them for about $8. I think maybe they're only about $14 now or so. They're not too expensive, and give it a shot. It's not a big investment. The thing you're going to have to do with all these knives that I find is that when they come, the bevel on the knives is pretty steep, and it means it's kind of like this. Imagine the blade. You're looking at the profile. It's kind of like they're pretty steep. You want to basically bring that bevel down a bit. You want to bring it in, make it a bit more shallow, depending on the type of wood you're using it for. But that's kind of key. So most of them are going to require you to do a little bit of work on the blade themselves. And I'm just going to real quick. I have some video. I did a video where I kind of talk about how I prepare my knives, and I will have a link that'll pop up over here, and I'll have a link down in the description for how I sharpen and prepare my knives. And one of the parts of that I do one of these pocket knives. So if you want to check that out, but I'm going to just show you real quick what I typically use. I'll be right back. Okay, this is obviously not going to be a video on sharpening. I just wanted to show you some of the into things that I use. This is a relatively inexpensive diamond stone. It's got two sides, 1200 grit and a 600 grit. Although I honestly don't believe there's all that much of a difference. They're fairly cheap. And there's what I would typically do is start with, maybe if I'm doing a lot of heavy grinding, I'll start with some heavier grit like sandpaper. Maybe I'll start at like 120 grit, and I'll run the blade. I'll have it on a flat surface of sandpaper, and I'll run the blade back and forth across that until I get it to the shape I want, and then I'll start refining it. Maybe I'll work my way down to a 1200, 600. A lot of times what I do is I have these little cutoffs of plywood, and I'll wrap it or glue the sandpaper to the edge here. Just wrap it on here. And what I do after I get it down a bit, I'll do, like I said, I'll do my refining where I take it and I'll bring the board against the blade this way, and I'll just keep doing it. I'll reverse it and I'll do it this way. Like I said, check the video. It's more detail. And then so I get the blade in shape that way, and that's how I initially set it up. And then I maintain it pretty much the same way. I use different types of honing compound. I'll have leather glued to the same type of stick, and I use the green on one side, the yellow on one side, and I'll periodically, as I'm whittling, I'll just run it across this way and then run it across this way. I'll start with the yellow and then I'll work my way to the green, and that's it. That's really what you do. Again, this is not a sharpening video. If you're interested, check out the one I did, but that's just basically how I get the knives ready to go and how I maintain them while I'm whittling. That's essentially that part of it. And let me just clean some of this up and I'll be right back. These are just some of the found wood whittles that I've done using a pocket knife. And I think I have videos where I've done all three of these. And again, I'll have links in the description if you're interested. But you can use a pocket knife. I tend to just use them on found wood. And here's a piece of basswood. For basswood, I might use a typical whittling knife or carving knife. This is a piece of eastern white pine. This is just a bit of pine from a shelf support. But I just wanted to show you, real fast. You can basically, use pocket knives on anything. Like I said, typically I'll use it for a found wood like this, where you're just gonna go in here and you're just removing wood and cutting it, shaping it in the way you want, and do a little wood spirits, your little hillbillies. This one's a little owl sitting in there, that's what I typically use them for. I really find them enjoyable. You can just hang out outside, grab yourself a piece of wood, cut off a section of branch, and whittle away and have fun. Make yourself a wood spirit, make yourself a little, whatever you can do. Any carving you could do in a piece of basswood, you can do using a pocket knife and some found wood. But you also, if you want to, don't feel like you can't use it for basswood. If you wanted to use it for basswood, same thing. It's perfectly usable on a piece of basswood, eastern white pine. you know, same thing. This I don't know. This was old shelf support. It's got some paint on it, but you know, again, a pocket knife does the job. And if you go and you pick up one of these relatively inexpensive pocket knives, you're not going to invest a whole heck of a lot of money. Maybe, you know, maybe some of them can be kind of expensive. I'll show you. You know, this one here is a carving jack from Flex Cut, and it's got tons of different blades. This is our older version. Apparently, I was not a big fan of the older version. The blades are very difficult to get out, but they have tons of different. It's designed for people who you know, whittle and everything like that. It has you know, lots of different blades and gouges and all different types of things, V-gouges. It's really cool, but it's expensive. It's probably over $100 or something like this. But they have a new version, and from what I hear, it's actually a better design than this one. So you know, if you're interested in something like that, you can go out and spend about $100 or $120, whatever they cost now, and get yourself one of these. Honestly, it's a bit overpriced for all the stuff you need. Don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with it. And if you have the money to spend, go ahead. But if you're interested in whittling with a pocket knife, most people have them laying around. Pull yours out. You know, you also might have the old Swiss Army knife by Victorinox, I think that's how it's pronounced. And you can. I have a few of them. I don't have them out with me right now, but you can, if you have one of those laying around, you know, hone it up, sharpen it up, and give it a shot on whittling in different types of wood that you have laying around. Most people probably have a pocket knife somewhere. You can find them. There's different manufacturers. There's Old Timer, there's Buck. There's plenty of manufacturers out there. Like I said, I've been using these Rough Riders, you know, particularly these two, in many of my videos. The only issue that I have with these Rough Riders is that they're a little small. Yeah, honestly, that's not a problem. If it's in your pocket, that's when it's an advantage to be small, because, you know, it's one thing to carry this knife around in your pocket. It's another thing to carry this knife around in your pocket. So these are kind of cool. You can actually pull them out. The blades do the job. They're big enough. The big blade I typically use for the bulk removal of the bark and stuff like that. And then I have the two blades that I refine a little bit as I get into more detailed stuff, when I'm getting into the eyes and the nose and the beard and everything. Or like in the owl, you're doing little details on the toes and what have you. Just check out my videos if you're interested in seeing me do that. But yeah, that's really about it. I didn't want to drag this video out too long, but I just wanted to, because a lot of people do ask me about the pocket knives, and I'm a big fan of whittling with a pocket knife. So I just wanted to kind of, you know, give you a little heads up on the way I see it, and if you're interested, you know, check it out, try them out. They're really fun to use. But so really, that'll take care of it for this week's video. Next week, I think we're going to come back, and it'll be autumnal equinox, I believe, next weekend. So maybe we'll do a little pumpkin or something like that in preparation for the fall season. So that'll be it for me. I hope you all have a great whittling week. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.